Get into the presence of God as we begin to enter this service and worship. I don't know where you're at, if you're sitting down, but why don't you just lift your hands or stand to your feet this morning. And let's just begin to enter into His presence with thanksgiving and into His courts with praise this morning. Why don't you, wherever you're at this morning, why don't you just begin him a hand clap of praise this morning and just begin to thank Him for His goodness as we enter into worship this morning.
Show promise. We believe in you, Lord, for greater things. We know that you are willing. We've seen that you are able. Oh God, release your favor. We believe in you, Lord, for greater things. Some nations are shaking and every curse is breaking. Strongholds are falling and greater things are coming. Foundations are shaking and every curse is breaking. Strongholds are falling and greater things are coming. Foundations are shaking and every curse is breaking. Strongholds are falling and greater things are coming. No mountains stand before us. No weapons formed against us. We're standing on your promise. We believe in you, Lord, for greater things. We know that you are willing. We've seen that you are able. Oh God, release your favor. We believe in you, Lord, for greater things.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Glory to your mighty name, Jesus. We exalt your name, O Lord. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You're so great and greatly to be praised, God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Your kindness leads me to repentance. Your goodness draws me to your side. Your mercy calls me to be like you. Your favor is my delight. Your kindness leads me to repentance. Your goodness draws me to your side. Your mercy calls me to be like you. Your favor is my delight. And every day I awaken my praise and pour out a song from my heart. You are good. You are good. You are good. And your mercy is forever. Oh, you are good. You are good. You are good, and your mercy is forever. Your kindness leads me to repentance, and your goodness draws me to your side. Thank you, Jesus. Your mercy calls me to be like you. Your favor is my delight. And
just tell him how good you think he really is today. Jesus, we feel your presence today. We thank you for your loving kindness. We thank you for your tender mercy today. God, in these times of trouble and stress, we ask that you bring a release and a relief today. Thank you, Jesus. God truly is good today. We want to thank you today for all the good things that you have done for us, God, for the blessings that you have sent our way. We ask that you touch each and every individual that's the sound of my voice today. Comfort them, strengthen them today. Bless them with your word. We ask in your name. I want to read today from Psalms, the 107th chapter. Beginning at verse 23, reading down through verse 28. I wish that you would bring your Bibles wherever you're at so that you could join us. It says, they that go down to the sea in ships, that do business in great waters, these see the works of the Lord and his wonders in the depth. For he commandeth and riseth the stormy winds, which lift up the waves thereof. They mount up to the heavens, they go down again into the depths. Their soul is melted away because of trouble. They reel to and fro and stagger like a drunk man, and are at their wits' end. Then they cry unto the Lord in their trouble. Here's the secret. And he bringeth them out of their distresses. I'm sure that you have heard the phrase, I'm at my wits' end. And I think that we have probably all used that phrase from time to time. It's when we reach the place where we don't know what to do. It's when we reach that place that we're struggling to find out what we need to understand and know. And in this psalm, the place called Wits End was on the ship of the deck in a storm-tossed sea. Giant waves carried the ships up to the heavens and then dropped it down to the depths. Powerful winds tossed it back and forth so that the sailors couldn't find what we would call their sea legs. They staggered across the decks like drunken men. The ship's sails were tattered and ripped and torn. The wave after wave of powerful velocity and strength crashed into the decks. The sailors have to struggle just to hold on and just to stay alive and to keep the boat righted. It looks like it's all over for them, and they're in total despair. They are helpless, vulnerable to the power of the elements, unable to stop the storm and powerless to save the ship or themselves. The sailors have come to a place called Wits End. It is a condition that affects all of us at one time or another. This phrase means having lost or exhausted any possibilities of perceiving or thinking of a way out. There's no way of escape, no help, no deliverance other than God himself. Perhaps today you have already arrived at a place called Wits End. Like the sailors around the ship, we have simply been going about our business, trying to do what we can do to help in these circumstances and these trying times. The storms come our way and they hit us, and the waves seem to overcome us, and troubles come crashing down on us from all sides. And this is a circumstance we have found ourselves in just in the last few weeks. Life has changed for us as we have known it. But life's troubles seldom come one at a time, if you will notice. They're like the waves of a storm that just keep beating and crashing, coming one after another, faster and furiouser, and higher they crash against us. And it's as if the sun has gone down and the air has turned icy cold, and the winds are of trouble have begun to beat us down. Like the sailors in Psalms 107, our soul is melted because of trouble. I want you to notice something today with me, that God himself has instituted the storm. Because in that verse 25 it said, he commandeth and raiseth the storms, he winds, which lifted up the waves thereof. Or in other words, he brought the sailors to the place where they were at. He brought this ship to the circumstances that they found themselves in. He is allowing the wind to stir up the waves and tossing the ship to and fro, and it's all because of God's doing. And this can be a great encouragement to our faith whenever trouble hits us from all sides. We have the knowledge that all trouble and storms in life have been ordained by God for those who walk in righteousness. We can read it in the life of Job. His life was going on as normal, and then all of a sudden everything that he knew was turned upside down. But Job still had a faith, and he still had a confidence in God. The Lord had brought this ship to its end, and he has a purpose in it all. 1 Peter 4:12 says, beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trials, which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. But rejoice inasmuch as ye are partakers of Christ's suffering, that when the glory shall he reveal, ye may be glad also with exceeding joy. You know what? God is not surprised at your ordeal. God is not surprised at the troubles that come our way. In fact, it is happening because he wants to produce something in our hearts to reveal his glory in us. And you may feel it's the worst storm in your life, and you may feel that the trials may be financial. They may be business. They may be troubles. Maybe somebody has slandered you. But God has it all in control. You go to bed restless. Clouds hanging over your head. You wake up in the morning feeling not refreshed, but the same anxious feeling inside. That dull ache is still with you. And it keeps hanging on until one day you wake up crying, God, how much more do I have to endure? How long will you show me? Will you pull your spirit from me? God, you will allow me. How long will you allow me to go through what I'm going through? When will all this end? When the storm stopped, for the sailors in Psalms 107, where did God bring them there before they found their safe haven? According to the psalmist, two things happened. First, the sailors came to their wits' end, and then they said, there's no way that we can save ourselves, and nobody on earth can get us out of this. We have to come to a place where we don't know what to do on our own. And when we reach that place, then we learn to cry out, God, I can't make it on my own. And so turning to him alone, I have to turn to him for help. And that 28th verse says, then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he bring them out of their dark distresses. In other words, he carried them out of their troubles. If you're a child of God, or even if you're not, don't know God in the way that he would like for you to know him, if you set on allowing him to mold you into his image and into his likeness, then your battle won't stop until you give up trying to figure it all out on your own and allow God to touch your heart and your life until he has accomplished his eternal purpose in you. Your troubles will only continue to rage. You say, well, how does that happen, and why does that happen? It happens because it only prolongs your trial, because God is trying to work something out in you. And God wants us to trust him and find confidence in him. You're only keeping the storms raging and the waves piling up one after another if you refuse to cry out, Lord, I'm in a mess. And the only way out is you, God. God keeps bringing us to wit's end until we learn to trust Him completely, no matter how hopeless things appear. It happened time after time to the children of Israel in the wilderness. God brought them to a place called wit's end. First, He brought them to a place called Phi Hithroi. Behold, between Migdal and the sea. And He had shut them in. The sea was in front of them. The mountains were on either side of them. And the Pharaoh's army was behind them. And there was no physical way out for the children of Israel. That word, the name of the place, meant captivity or den, or a cell of a prison or a gorge. God actually led them to a place of human hopelessness, a place called wit's end. Israel simply did not believe what God had told them. Because if they had, they could have been free from all their worries and all their fears. But God had told them in Deuteronomy, the Lord thy God bear thee, or the Lord thy God carries you. Lord, you are God. And He is going in the way before you to search you out a place to pitch your tents in and to show you by what way you should go. God has all in control. He goes before us into our troubles. He goes before us in the way, and He will lead us to the way that He wants us to go, because He'll find a place for us to dwell, and He'll find protection for us there. God says, I'll go with you. I'll carry you as a man carries his son. I'll walk before you. I'll find a place for you to live. And it happened that the cloud stopped between Migdal and the sea, a place of total befuddlement, a place of wit's end. Israel could figure their way through the Red Sea maybe, but Pharaoh's army was behind them and fast approaching. I want to ask you, are you in a hard place right now? The storm's brewing in your life. How do you get to where you're at? Do you think the devil put you in the place that you're at? My answer is this. Found in Psalms 37 and 23, the steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord. No matter what storms you're going through, and no matter how black the thing seems to be, God has put you in the place where you are at wit's end. We have to understand that God is never caught by surprise. What is happening in our world around us is not a surprise to God. He doesn't have to ad-lib His divine direction whenever troubles befall us. No, because long before Israel left Egypt and arrived at Migdal, God planned for them where they were going to be and when they would arrive. He had already commanded the winds to blow at a certain hour. He had called the Red Sea to build up at a certain time. He had known all along exactly what He was going to do, and God led them to that place. God has a plan to bring you out of your storm. He devised the plan long before your troubles ever started. And He will hold it back in the very last moment, waiting for you to trust Him. He wants to see if you'll put your life into His hands and say, live or die, I'm going to trust God. Amen. Live or die, I'm going to trust you, God. Because He wants to see if you'll put your life into His hands for you to trust Him. He wants to see if you will trust Him with your very breath. Israel failed the test. They became fearful. They fretted. They worried. They were still at wit's end. And yet God did for them what He planned all along. He parted the Red Sea and delivered them. What a miracle they saw. But the people sang the song of their deliverance on the wrong side of the trial. If they'd have had faith in God and sang it before, they wouldn't have worried and fretted. But they had to wait for God to do something for them, and then they sang their song of deliverance. And if you panic at wit's end, as Israel did, feigning and accusing God of not caring, God might deliver you at the last moment, but He will take you into another wit's end experience because you didn't come through the last one trusting Him. Just 3 days after the Red Sea's deliverance, Israel was back in the middle of another big crisis. They were hot. They were exhausted by thirst. Their scouts came back crying, "There's water at Marah, but we can't drink it because it's too bitter." You know what? The devil didn't lead Israel to that testing place. It was the cloud by day that led them there. And once more, the people were at their wits' end. And what a wailing went up from the camp. Did God know the water was bitter at Marah? Of course God did. There was a certain living tree, the Bible says, that was there by the bitter pond. And he would use it to purify the water of Israel. And I wonder how many years before God planted the tree in that spot. How many worms had tried to kill that little sagebrush that was there by that pond of Marah? How many worms had tried to kill it? How many passerbys had tried to cut it down and use it for firewood? I'm telling you, nobody could have touched it because God planted the tree by that pond of Marah for the children of Israel. He said, one day my children are going to come here, and these waters will need to be purified, and I have planned a deliverance for them. It's going to involve this tree. God has already planted a tree of deliverance for you today. He knows exactly what to do about your problems and exactly the hour that He will do it. He has it all in His plan. He wants it. He has already placed it there for your quiet trust. He wants you to say, "My God is with me." Because He knows the way out of your troubles. Wit's end is a place of suffering and pain and insecurity. We see it illustrated in Israel's experience at Rephidim, found in Exodus the 17th chapter. Verse 1, it says, "And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin according to the commandments of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for them to drink. And the people murmured against Moses and said, Whereof is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, What shall I do unto this people? They be almost ready to stone me." God had led Israel to the driest part of the wilderness. It was a testing place one more time with no stream, no well, no trickle of water. Most baffling of all is Israel was led there according to the commandments of God. God Himself had allowed His people to grow thirsty. Babies were crying. Children were wailing. Grandparents were suffering. Parched throats. Parents looked at their families and thought, in a few days we're all going to die of thirst. Their lips were cracked. Their tongues were swelling. So they turned in anger against Moses, crying, Give us water to drink. They were still depending on man and not God. Let me point out this, that first God took Israel to Migdal by the sea to test them. They failed to trust Him. Next, He took them to Moriah, where He had another plan of deliverance. They failed to test again. Now He brings them to Rephidim for more testing. See, if you don't learn to trust God in simple childlike faith, when you're being tested, He will bring you to another testing place. You'll go through one test and then another until you learn to put your trust and confidence in God. Israel was in just a place once again. They were hot, they were thirsty, they were angry, but God had a plan, and He wasn't going to let them die, because He had chosen beforehand to have them walk up the Mount Horeb, to a reservoir of water that He had prepared long before. And that source would be last not just a day or a week or a month or a year, but it was going to last 38 years. And the Bible says that it followed them wherever they went. I want to tell you, that is a type of Jesus Christ. In your time of trouble, in your time of struggles, in your time of worry and fret, there is a well of living water that you can have that springs up inside of you that can take you past your place of wit's end. And you can say, God, I trust in you with everything that is inside of me. God, I believe you can take care of every circumstance and every situation. God took Israel to Migdal by the sea and tested them, and they failed him. God is testing us right now. Our situations look totally hopeless. There's pain and suffering involved. It's not easy. We have trouble sleeping at night because the world is crazy. Lies awake worrying about what to do. And we come to church. We can't come to church in these troubling times and raise our hands and praise the Lord together. We can't walk through the doors of the sanctuary and find help in the time of need with those others around us. We are suffering anxiety, ridden in worry. We can't gather together to gain strength. We can't walk up and hug another brother or another sister and weep and cry on their shoulders and have them pray for us because of the way things are in this old world. But you and I are going through some different times than we've ever faced. And our times are troubling, and it may seem like we're at wit's end. But I ask you, as God's child, do we have no option but fear and sleepless nights and endless days or question God? Do we have to live in utter turmoil? Was Israel fretting and grumbling the only response possible? Was it simply a human for those to react in that way? Let me answer that question by asking another question. Hasn't God always known what he was going to do in each of those cases? He always has a plan. God's plan is to have the wind open up the Red Sea. God's plan was to have a little bush be thrown into water to make it sweet. God's plan was to have a rock that out of it would flow sweet water. And God has a plan for you and I today. Our Father would never lead us into a dry desert only to let us die of thirst. He would never teach us to swim to let us down. God has always had a plan. He has a plan for you right now to deliver you from your present struggles. There's no problem that you have that he can't unravel. There is no problem too small that he doesn't see it. There is no mountain too big that he can't conquer it. He can help you in the time of your troubles. You will emerge from wit's end either trusting in man or trusting fully in God. Either cursed or blessed. Which way will you respond in your time of trouble? Jeremiah wrote this. Thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man who trusts in man, and makes the flesh his strength, whose heart departs from the Lord. For he shall be like a shrub in the desert, and shall not see when good comes, but shall inherit the parched places in the wilderness. Cursed is the man that trusts in man and in the little shrub bushes in the desert. He goes on to say, but blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, and whose hope is in the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, which spread out its root in the rivers, and will not fear when heat comes, but his leaves will be green, and will not be anxious for the years of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit. We have two choices today in this time of struggle. We have two choices today in this hour when we're worried about the coronavirus. We have two choices. We can trust in man. We can trust in our scientists and our doctors to find us a way out of this circumstance and situation. We can trust in our president and our government to help us find our direction in this time of trouble. Or we can trust in God to lead us and guide us in the way that He wants to go. You see, the first person doesn't wait for God to move. He tries to take matters into his own hands and to work all the things out in his own time. He is always scheming and planning and manipulating. And his philosophy is, it's not what you know. It's not what you know that counts. It's who you know. But they look to the wrong who. The spiritual dryness sets in their personal lives. Verse 6 says, he shall be like the shrub of the desert. He shall not see when good comes. He never partakes of the joy of being delivered by God's hand. And everything he thinks looks good turns into misery. He is isolated. He is isolated. He's in parched places. He is being destroyed. And he keeps withering away, sweating it out, always frantic. But the other is the one who trusts in God in the hard places and at wit's end. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, whose hope is in the Lord. If you trust God, you have roots, you have stability, you have a reservoir of living water, and you are always spreading out fruitful vines and greens that will refresh you every hour of every day. He shall not be careful. That word means fearful. So I could read it like this. He shall not be fearful in the year of droughts. We are in a year of droughts. Listen to the news. Read the news stories. How long is it going to be? Easter? How long is it going to be? Fall? How long is it going to be? A year? How long is it going to be? Maybe 2 years even that we'll be in this. I'm not a doomsayer, but I am here to say it doesn't matter whether it's Easter or 2 years from now. God has everything in control, and He wants to take care of us as individuals. All you have to do is say, Jesus, I give up. I look to you. You're the person that can bring me out of this struggle. You're the one that I can trust in. You're the one that I can rely on today. God, I look to you today. I look to you to bring me out of this. The Lord desires this kind of faith from us. Every day matters. You may answer, but I don't know what I'm going to do. The storm is raging. It looks so hopeless. I don't see any sign of help or deliverance. To tell these things, to all these things, God still says, trust in me, my child, and I will bless you. If you put your total trust in God and in His words, and in His faithfulness, God has promised to bless you. And He cannot lie. When the heat comes, you won't ever be bothered. When the trial seems to overwhelm you and the waves are beating at your shore, God still holds you in the palm of His hand. Because you have learned to trust Him in spite of all the unnerving circumstances that you find yourself in. Everyone around you will be giving up hope and encouragement as we hide behind locked doors. But we can stay in the shelter of His arms. I've been reading and I've been studying Psalms 91. I encourage you to read it every day. I encourage you to pray it every day. Because he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And what a witness you will be in the time of trouble and anxiety and fear to those around you. When the trouble comes upon you, when you feel discouraged, when you feel depressed, God will be there on your side. Will you just close your eyes and raise your hands as we begin to sing this little closing song? I want to pray for everyone as they begin to sing today. God, you see each and every individual that's in this, under the sound of my voice today. God, you see every circumstance in every home that is being broadcasted today. You see those that are disheartened. You see those that are discouraged. You see those that are overwhelmed with fear. But you can walk into their room where they're at. You can walk into those living rooms. You can walk into the bedrooms. You can walk through the airwaves of what's taking place right now, and you can bring comfort and you can bring peace to the individual that's here in this room. You can bring peace and comfort to those that are around and are hearing this today. Come down and bless, oh God. Bless, oh God. Bless me, yes, in your precious wonderful name today. God, you can do what we ask and commit it to your hands because you have all things under control. 1,000 may fall at our sides and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it's not going to come to our dwelling.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Sing it again.
God, we magnify your name.
Bless the Lord,
We glorify
oh my
your
soul.
name today, God. We
Bless
worship
the
you.
Lord, oh my soul.
Thank you for your grace.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul. I will choose to bless you. I will choose to praise you. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. Oh yes, I will choose to honor. I will choose to worship. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. I will choose to bless you. I will choose to praise you. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. Yes, I will choose to honor. I will choose to worship. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. You're good. You're good. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. Oh, yes, Lord. You're good. You're good. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. Yeah, we sing it. You're good. You're good. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. Lord, I trust you, God. You're good. You're good. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. You're good. You're good. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. So I will bless the Lord. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh, I trust you, Jesus. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. I will choose to bless you. I will choose to praise you. No matter what my circumstance, you're good. Oh yes, I the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Lord, we worship you. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Bless the Lord, oh my soul.
We're so glad that you joined us today. We ask that you join us again Wednesday evening, 7 o'clock. Next Sunday at 11 o'clock. You can see any further announcements on our